Okay.
Okay, so this is the architecture. Uh, Architecture diagram, okay, for golden gate. So on this is the source side and this is the target side as specified. So these are two databases. Quickly going through it. Okay, so this is the capture process, which would be capturing the changes from the database. So capturing the changes means capturing reading from the redo-log files or reading from the archive files, okay, whatever it is. So this is more of uh, this is for any database, right? For SQL Server, it is transaction log files. For Oracle, it would be read log files or archive files. Okay, so change just capturing the changes, and after capturing the changes, this is putting into one more file over here on the source. You can see it is putting into a extract trail or trail files in its own format, which is internal to GoldenGate. Okay, and then there is a process known as pump, which is the background yellow. Pump process is reading those files. Okay, so pump process, first of all, let us understand pump more in detail. Is pump is the process which would be storing the details of the target. Okay, which is storing the details of the target. It would be have the IP address of the manager and the port number of manager as well. Okay, IP address means the IP address of this machine, not of manager but the complete machine, and the port number of manager as well. So pump would be first sending a message to manager that I am sending the data. Okay, I'm sending the app, start sending the data. So manager when came to know that that somebody sending the data, starts this process known as collector. Okay, so this is on the target side. So in this way it works. Okay, so first of all understand source better. So capture is reading these archive files, putting into the trail file, then pump is reading those trail files. So in the diagram you might be seeing that now capture is also coordinating with manager and collector. Okay, this is the case when pump is not there. Okay, so the below thing, the trail file and pump is an optional thing in GoldenGate. You can keep pump and trail file, you need not to keep. Okay, this is this is optional, not mandatory. So in if pump and trail files are not there, pump capture would directly communicate with manager. Pump will send a message that I am sending the data, and pump will start sending the data and directly communicate to the collector. Now if pump is there, this job is done by pump, sending a message to the manager and then sending the data to the collector. Okay, so this is done by pump. So pump has some benefits which we'll discuss later. Okay, so these are the two ways you can configure your source, one with pump and one without pump. So one is one only with capture, which capture is reading and also sending. In the second scenario, capture is reading and then writing to this trail file, and then pump is reading it. So it is just reading and writing to the trail file, not sending the data. Okay, if only capture is there, not sending in data. So it doesn't doing any connection to the target server. So it doesn't have any IP address or port number of the target. If pump is not there, all this information would be stored in capture. So now this is capture, which is reading the data from the database, has a connection to the database because it has to read the data. So it needs some connection to the database. So there is a database session which would be connected on the source database, and its permission should be good enough that it can read your redo log files and archive files. So it has a permission of the resource, flashback any table, select any table. Such kind of read-only permissions are there, which is some elevated privileges are also there. You can also give a DBA, but DBA might be higher. So you can give explicitly, you can give 5 or 6 privileges, which would be covering when we would be doing installing and configuring GoldenGate. Okay, so it does have need the read-only permission, but need to read the redo log files, archive files, and undo as well. Okay, so all this permission need to be given to the capture. So capture is just a session for a database. A session is data for a database. Okay, it can be external or it can be an internal session also. So there are two types of session which also discuss. So it can be internal or it can be an external session also. Internal means a part of the database itself. Okay, so here we understand how capture works is reading and sending data if pump is not there, and reading and writing to a trail file if pump is there. Okay, so this is the source. Now we come to the target. Okay, so the target I have shown you, capture is first sending a message to the manager, and then manager is internally starting a process collector. Okay, so collector is a process which you will not configure in most of the scenarios, which we might configure in some of the scenarios. Okay, in case of configuration or such, or in case of encryption or some specific configuration, we configure collector also, but generally we don't configure collector. Collector is automatically started by manager. Okay, whenever capture starts sending or pump starts sending the data. Okay, so collector, the location from where it has to write this trail file is also provided by the capture or the pump process. So the where to write the trail file is also provided by these processes. Okay, this will send the manager all this information, which from where the data is coming and where to write it as well. Okay, so the location, this location, the target trail file or remote trail file location is also provided by the capture and pump. Now, when this file is written, this replicate will read it. So replicate should also know the direction where it is. So we provide the path to the replicate and also a session to the target database. It is reading these files, converting into SQL command. That is also very slow process. Okay, converting into SQL commands, back into SQL command, and executing them on target. So it is executing on the target by after converting to SQL commands, SQL commands you can say. So that means it can work with any RDBMS. So that is the crux actually, that why it works with all RDBMS. It is working on the SQL commands only. It is reading the your read this configuration is different. This configuration remains the same, but binaries are different. Okay, so GoldenGate binaries for each databases are different, just because they have a different way to read the data. Okay, because every RDBMS have a different way to read the data from read to log file. Everybody has a different format of files, but the target side, most of things are remain the same. SQL commands are same. Okay, configuration of GoldenGate remains the same for each database. Okay, so replicate is also session to the target database. You should understand it. It is doing a lot of things. It is inserting, updating, deleting tables. It is creating tables as well. So it has a lot of elevated privileges. Okay, what all schemas you are replicating? Replicate should be able to insert, update, delete, or create tables kind of privileges should have, DDL privileges should have. So replicate also should have a session. Replicate is connected through the database, through a session, through a user. Okay, but it has a DBA, almost DBA privileges, not almost, but or DB only. In the source might be privileges required or less, because it's more of a reading operation. In the target is writing operations. So all kind of permission it should have. So what all schemas it is replicating, it should have permission to write on those schemas. If it is replicating to the complete database, we have included all the schemas in database. It should have a permissions like insert any table, create any table, or maybe delete any table kind of privileges. Okay, so let us go through in detail all this. Okay, so let us go through in detail each point. So the bullet point says is manager running should be running on both the source and target databases. Okay, before these are started. So it's performed a lot of functions, including monitoring and starting other GoldenGate process, managing the trail. So manager is kind of a process which is managing the task. It is if manager is started, only then the capture and pump or replicate process gets started. If manager is down, these processes will not start. Even it is his responsibility, if any of the process crashes, it will restart those processes. Okay, if any of the processes will try to restart it. It depends on the configuration we have done for manager. Okay, we'll go through about the manager configuration in that topic. But right now we can understand that manager is a responsibility that will restart the processes if it crashes. It also manages the log files, report files as well. Okay, now comes the capture process or extract process. So these two processes, which is the capture and pump, these both processes are known as the extract process in GoldenGate. So term is extract. Okay, we just telling capture, maybe a kind of name given to them, but actually technically their name is extract, because both are extracting the data. Capture is extracting from redo-log files, pump is extracted from trail files. So these processes are known as extract process. So both comes under extract process. Okay, so generally we call it, sometimes we call it as a primary extract, sometimes we call it a secondary extract, but generally these are extract process. Okay, so technically their name, when we are adding it, they are both are extracts. So it runs on the source system. The data capture mechanism can be configured for initial load of the source data as well as synchronized data. So initial load of the data means that one is change synchronized. Change synchronized, whatever changes are made in the database are captured, sent, right? One is initial load, just like an export and import. So you get the complete data, you export the complete data and import it. 10 rows you export, then import. Such kind of utility we can also do, okay, in GoldenGate. Not much used utility, but we can also use an initial load. Generally, popular utility is change synchronization. Okay, so initial load is also one of the topic as well, which we will cover. It can also, by default, it will capture all your DML transaction, that is insert, update, delete, but you can also configure it for DDL transactions as well, right? So replicate process runs on the target system, reads the trail file, replicates to target database. Like the extract process, replicate can also be configured for initial load and change synchronization. So you can configure it for initial load or change synchronization. So you can do initial load as well and change synchronization as well. Collector is also known as a dynamic collector. It is a dynamic because it is started by the manager. You are not starting it. We are as a GoldenGate admin not starting it. Automatically started by manager. Whenever manager gets a message from the source that a data will come or data is about to come, as pump or capture process first sends a message to the manager, just like a listener in the database. Any Whenever we're making a connection to the database, we are making through a listener. Okay, we cannot directly connect to the database. We are making through the listener because listener is running on a port number which will configure, and listener hands over the connection to the database. In the same way, in GoldenGate, we make a connection to the manager first. Manager will hand over the connection to the collector after starting the collector. Okay, once connection is made to the collector, even if manager is down also, data will be keep on sending. Okay, if it is down, but if connection is broken for some time, then after making a new connection, manager need to be up. Okay, so every time the connection will go through manager. So collector is a dynamic process started by manager. Whenever a connection comes to manager, it starts a process and hands over the connection to that process. Okay, then it starts sending the data. Okay, trail files, the, on the both sides there are trail files. You see in the diagram in the source there are trail file, target we have trail files. So trail file series of files that temporarily stores the data on the disk. These files are written and also read from the GoldenGate process. Depending on the configuration chosen, these trail file can exist on the source as well as on the target side. So depending on the configuration chosen, these trail file can exist on the source database as well on the target database. So on both the sides, the trail file can exist. On the source it is known as the extract trail files, on the target known as the remote trail files. If it is exist on the local system, it is known as the extract trail. On the target it is known as the remote trail files. So next come the pump. We discussed pump is an optional component, a secondary extract mechanism we call it. Okay, we can also call it a secondary extract. So what will happen if pump is not used? Okay, so this is a why pump is used, why not used. Okay, let us understand this diagram. Okay, so if assume pump is not there, I don't use a pump. Okay, right, because it is optional, you cannot. So capture is directly sending the data to the manager. Manager is reading to the collector. So it is working, right? So what would be the problem? So the problem will come once the network is down. Okay, assume a network is down for some time. What will happen? Capture is capture cannot read the data. Why? Because there is network is not able to store the data anywhere, so it cannot keep the data in the buffer. So capture will anyways will stop. Capture will crash, right? Because network is down. So capture is down because network is also down, and definitely changes are made to the database. So redo log files keep on moving ahead. Redo log file will keep on switching. It will become archive files. So these are keep on switching the data. So once network is up, what will happen that now the redo log file, the changes are made. Maybe network is down for 3 to 4 hours. So if the network is up, it has to go 3 to 4 hours back into that archive files to read the data now, right? Because it is not reading it, so it has to read the data from the archive files. There will start sending the data. So already 4 hours lag is created. So this is the one scenario where only capture will face an issue. Okay, so if the in case of network crash. Second scenario, second thing you can say that capture is also reading the data and also sending the data to the target. Okay, so it has lot of work to do. So it's creating more. It is kind of this will also slow down the process more, creating more burden on this process. So capture is also reading the data and also it is also sending the data to the target. So it has the more burden, so definitely it becomes slow, dependency on the capture increases more, and the network is one of the issues. So even if for any crash, anything happen, so if now assume pump is there, now if pump is there, what will happen if network is down? So network is down, pump will definitely crash because pump is not able to send the data, so it will abandon, or you can say it crash. So at least the capture is up. So capture is still capturing the data and putting it into the trail file. Trail files are keep on piling up. Maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, keep on piling up. But even if the database is, even the network is down, so at least we have the trail file. Now once the network is up, it is down for 4 hours. Now it has to just need to send the data. Okay, data is already we have captured from the database. Because one thing is we are increasing more process, we are decreasing the dependencies, we are kind of a parallel process, we are adding with the pump. Generally sometimes happens the golden gate team, as a golden gate admin, I would say the golden gate team and database team are different. Sometimes they are same. Okay, there is an infrastructure team which is handling both the golden gate and the database, and sometimes they are different. So what will happen if the network is down, and network is down, not able to send the data, so now I need to coordinate with the DBA team to get those archive files, right? So the archive files might be 4 hours, 6 hours, might be on some slow disk, might be purged, or whatever would happen. Okay, it will increase the dependency, okay, on the DBA side, on the database side, that those archives should be available for that 6 hours or 10 hours, whatever the time the network is down. But in case pump is configured, we have reducing the dependency. Okay, we are reducing the dependency, that at least we are able to read the data. Okay, if not able to send the data. Right. So this is the benefit of using a pump. Is definitely an optional. You may or may not use it, but definitely required in case of production. It will improve the performance as well. Okay, and definitely better in case of better management, better administration. Okay, in case of dev environments or test environments, might be performance is not an issue or database is not an issue. We have the database access. Then you may not use pump also. Doesn't actually benefits at that time. Okay. So but in a real production scenario, very much required. One more scenario is the corruption of the files. Sometimes the target rail files get corrupted, so some way we can get the data again from the extract rail file. This is an advanced scenario, I would say, but yeah, definitely there would be a difference. We can, even if the target rail files are corrupted, we can get again the data from the source rail files. Just making the trail files only at one location definitely increases the risk, because there is no such kind of mirroring or such kind of facility provided by the golden gate. Okay, so we might sometime it help us in troubleshooting also, to segregate the things, where is the issue, where is the slowness, so it help us to segregate the issues as well. So there are quite few number of benefits which will achieve while configuring pump. Okay, so this is all what we have explained in the steps as well. Optional component, if pump is configured, primary extract will write to the local trail file, and this trail is read by the data pump. So in absence, the data resides in the memory alone. Okay, so data is there in the memory in the source, nowhere is stored. Okay, just in the memory. And once if network is down, definitely there is some limit to the buffer of the extract. If it's not able to sustain, it will crash because it's not able to send the data to the target. Okay, so now one more is the checkpoint, which is also very important process for golden gate. You might be thinking that what will happen if my database is down, if my database is down, or the network is down. How golden gate manages internally? Golden gate manages quite smartly. Golden gate holding a checkpoint for each position, checkpoint for the database, checkpoint for trail file. So both the cases it has a checkpoint. Pump has a checkpoint from where it is reading the data. Assume database is down. Okay, so database is down. I'm restarting the database. Got up. Now capture should know where it was left, where it has to read next time. Pump is down. So pump is down. So pump he has to know from where it was reading last time. So you cannot manually intervene and do it. It is storing the location where it is reading in a files which is known as the checkpoint files. So these are the physical files which are stored in the source and target, storing the read and write positions of the database, of the trail files, of such thing in the target as well, of the remote trail files of the target database, where which point it is reading and writing. It knows the location. So that is the checkpoint. So it stores the current read and write position of the process. Checkpoint ensures database changes marked for synchronous are extracted. So it is ensures that everything is done consistently. Okay, there is no overwriting, there is no redundant processing, there is no reading the data two times or writing the data two times. So just a pointer and keeping it in a file which is known as the checkpoint file. Okay, also keeps in the database as well. It also creates a table in the target known as the checkpoint table. Okay, files is already there, source and target both the ways files are there, but in target there is a table as well. Okay, which we can use, that is also optional actually, that we can use to maintain at the target. Okay, so data source is none other than your Oracle. So data source means that from where we are fetching the data. So in our case, we can keep it as an Oracle or DB2 or SQL Server. That is known as that's a term uses in the GoldenGate. Okay, data source. Now group, name of the process is known as a group. So I can create multiple extract or multiple capture or a multiple pump or replicate. All I will this call as a group. Replicate group, replicate group R1 or extract group C1, C2. So these are not known as the processes in Golden Gate terminology. These are known as the groups. Okay. So I think that ends the architecture.